Just make him miserable. Make him squirm.
Let's roll the fucking dice.
Who knows? Who cares, Barry?
What is happening, everybody? It is time for another MLB Live before locking. Guess what? The shitty weather, it's back in our lives. So that is something we're going to have to talk about over the course of the show. At least the good news. Yankees game already canceled, which I figure is going to be the case, Eric. The weather here is horrific. I sent Jordan a video before, and if I just fall off in the middle of the stream, it means that my power went out because it is pouring here. Thunder and lightning. It is no good. Very bad. Terrible outside. I think it should be okay, but just letting you know, outside possibility that ends up happening. If you guys could do us a favor, the more you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the less likely that my internet and power are to go off over the course of this show. And yeah, like I said, we're going to have to discuss the weather. We're sponsored here by Bet365. And also, if you guys are in our Discord channel, you got questions for me, hit me up. Also, if you want us to review a lineup that you're playing today in our single lineup simulations, hit me up with that lineup in Discord. And we'll throw it up on screen when we get there, and we'll look at it and we'll evaluate that lineup. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just ready to rock here today. As you said, New York, awful weather there, just in time for me to fly out there on Thursday night. Can't wait to see you. It's going to be, it looks like awful. There's a hurricane there. My sister-in-law lives in New York City. She's in the East Village out there. And yeah, she's just telling me all the things that we're not going to be doing. Or well, one of the two, I don't know. But anyway, all the things that we're not going to be doing on Saturday because of the weather. Looks absolutely horrific. So glad that they canceled that one early, but we still have this headache that exists here a little bit later with the Washington spot. Not that it looks crazy difficult relative to what we just had in New York, but yeah, it does not look good there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on a couple of spots for sure. I don't think any game is going to get canceled outside of the Yankees-Angels game, because if you look at some of these other spots that have some dicey weather, the good news with some of them is that it seems like, well, number one, games that aren't on the main slate, or some of the other ones looks like if it does rain, it's going to be in the early stages of the game, and then we'll be totally clear for the later part. So obviously, Yankees game already postponed. We're not playing that one. Are there any other games for the main slate, though, that you're pulling out of your player pool that you're super concerned about?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, Minnesota, Chicago has weather, and it's crazy. The Colorado game has potential pop-ups that always kind of show up here to some extent. There's like surrounding cloud cover like there always is in Denver, but I don't think it's going to matter. Washington is whatever, but that's not going to be on the main slate, so that we don't really have to think about that. No, I think I'm going to be pretty clean with everything else the rest of the night outside of just paying close attention to see if anything pops up weather-wise there in that, you know, with the Colorado stuff because of how much exposure I'm sure we're all going to talk about with Coors Field.
Yeah, and the one piece of weather that, and we talk about wind from like there's times that wind is relevant. However, I don't know I could remember a game this entire season that was like this Cubs Minnesota Twins game. So wind is blowing in heavily to the point where, do you see what the total is for this game now?
Well, you understand on Lindy's Slings, Likes, and Locks, I broke this down last night because, again, I'm the first person who breaks down the weather every single day on YouTube. No offense to anybody else. I'm sure they're all lovely there, but I have windfinder.com that had crazy arrows going this way directly in at Wrigley Field. I have it zoomed in. It's usually the first spot whenever it's on a slate, the first spot that I generally zoom in and look at. I slammed minus 105, 6.5. It was at minus 125, 6.5. Did it drop to 6?
It is 6 now. If you go over to, not only is it 6, but it's not like heavily juiced either way either. There's a little bit of juice, but the total is currently 6 for the Twins Cubs game. And I'm looking at FanDuel for reference. Minus 104 on the under, minus 118 on the over. So it's not like it's plus money on the under or anything. That is a game that is not expected to be featuring very much scoring. The reason being is, yeah, that wind blowing in up to 30 miles per hour, blowing in straight from center there in Chicago. It is going to be extremely difficult for teams to put runs up on the board. It's going to be very favorable for the pitchers, and the ball is put in play. Also, by the way, shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships to the people there. Chris. Oh, no, sorry, 10. 10. I always click on the first one that shows up there, so it showed 5. But 2 separate instances there that Chris gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So, Chris, we appreciate you for supporting the channel. But yeah, total there is all the way down to 6. That is going to matter when we start talking about these pitchers here, which we are going to start with right now, unless anything else you want to talk about with the weather or anything else before we get into it.
No, it's one of those rare spots in betting. Again, I didn't pull up my laptop yesterday thinking I was going to hammer on under 6.5 earned runs by any means, but it's very rare, I think, in MLB DFS that I'll just write off an entire game and an entire portfolio. There is almost no justification, I think, for playing batters today from that game with the size of the slate that we have. I mean, it will truly be as contrarian as it gets, but even if we run into a scenario where, you know, people want to try to play them at the low 1%, or like Minnesota was crazy low owned yesterday against Kyle Hendricks in a pretty neutral spot. And Royce Lewis hit a 32-degree launch angle fly ball double that was lost in the lights that went like 368. And after I saw that one, I was like, if this is going to be windier tomorrow, because I heard that it was going to be on the telecast, that it was going to be windier, I was like, I think I'm going to be taking some unders. And then sure enough, it was like 25-30. Very, very rarely do I just take hitters out of my player pool. I have the entire game of batters out of it.
Yeah, we got a super chat here from Ryan Schindler. It says, thanks for helping down the 3K on. So if you guys didn't see, we had a number of big DFS wins yesterday. Ryan Schindler was amongst them. He ended up winning $3,000 yesterday. He left a super chat. Says, thanks for helping me take down $3,000 on $60 worth of entry fees. Damn good ROI there. He wants to know, who are the Reds of tonight's slate? Yeah, so the Reds were pivotal last night, and we will talk a little bit about stacks and some contrarian spots that we like getting to, but really quick here to do a little bit of a really early look at the stacks there. Who is the team with modest ownership that you think has potential to just break the slate in the same way that the Reds did yesterday?
I don't know, but Billy Beane died?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Like a couple hours ago.
Oh, my buddy just sent me a text on that. I don't know. That was wild. I want to watch Moneyball. I'm always looking for an excuse to watch Moneyball. But anyway, what was the question?
So the super chat Ryan had left us, and also he was not the only one who had a big score yesterday. We also had a sub win $50,000 yesterday. So really one of the. Do you have that screenshot by chance, Jordan? The sub who won the 50K. Here it is. Yeah. Danny C. Shout out to the Stochastic Sims there. And don't forget, guys, that if you do want to sign up for a data package or a Sims package, you could get 25% off with the promo code SINGLE. That deal is going to be expiring tomorrow. And either of those packages do come with access to our single lineup simulator there. So once again, shout out to Ryan for winning the GPP last night that he hit, and his super chat. Once again, to read off to Eric, it is, who is the Cincinnati Reds of tonight's slate? So a team with like modest ownership that you think could just absolutely destroy the slate. And to be honest, every team outside of the Mets has modest ownership.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's kind of the fun of this slate. So yesterday was fun in a different way. And you had an amazing start to that slate. It was like 5 minutes after the show, it was homer, homer, homer. But it was interesting because it was like from 3 different games. You had the Tyler Fitzgerald, and then it was like 2 different positions, or the same position with Ellie De La Cruz and Fitzgerald. You couldn't play them at the same position by any means. But I think today's Cincinnati, the absolutely unowned smash, Houston Astros.
Let's see. So for myself, it is going to be the team that I'm playing in single entry. That is the Milwaukee Brewers against Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder has low-key been dog shit this year. He was bad last year also. He just had a lot of luck go his way. So he had 3.81 ERA, but a 4.61 expected ERA last year. This year, it's pretty much all of the same numbers, just he hasn't benefited from the same luck. So he's a 5.67 ERA and a 4.63 expected ERA. 6% ownership going to the Milwaukee Brewers. I like them a whole bunch for large field tournaments as well as single entry. I'm about double the field on them. So Ryan, that's the team that I'm going to say is going to be the Cincinnati Reds of today. At least I hope it is, because that would be really beneficial to me, just as playing the Reds was yesterday. But now, pitching time, Eric. Of the high-end pitchers, we've got 3 of them today. One of them's popular. One of them is kind of like mediocre ownership, and one of them the field isn't getting to. Sonny Gray, he's your chalk against the Tampa Bay Rays. He's 33% owned. Imanaga, 15% owned with the really favorable wind and weather conditions there in Chicago. Then Seth Lugo, he's your unowned pitcher at 6% ownership at $9,200. On the high end, who's your favorite pitcher relative to ownership?
Shota Imanaga. I'm going to be playing a lot of Shota Imanaga. I'm a little bit surprised to see him at 15% here. Seth Lugo has been nails. Sonny Gray, I get it. Tampa Bay, we just saw how many 6.5, 7.5 strikeout totals between Kikuchi and Arrighetti in that Houston series. And, well, it's more of the same here. But relative to ownership, I mean, Sonny Gray is going to be really popular in small field. He's going to be very popular in large field. And Shota Imanaga gets to have the check mark of everything we just talked about. He gets to take on a Minnesota Twins team that would generally be terrifying for a left-handed pitcher to go up against. I mean, they've been just absolutely insane. 112 WRC plus. I didn't expect them to be a top 10 team in baseball against lefties this year. I thought that they would have a lot of success against righties, considering Larnach and Wallner, who are not in the lineup today, and their profiles coming into this season. Max Kepler, who is in that lineup today. But we are going to see a weird baseball game here in this one. And I don't see any reason that Shota Imanaga should be just 15%, considering, I mean, this is the best pitching conditions you could possibly ask for a pitcher. It is going to be 30 miles per hour at his back in the pitch or in the hitter's face. And he's got a 25% K rate. This lineup also that Minnesota rolled out, obviously, the iterations of it without Byron Buxton, who, does strike out quite a bit, but it's really watered down in the back half. Willie Castro's been sneaky good against both sides, but Austin Martin, Max Kepler, Christian Vasquez, Brooks Lee to finish this out. 3 implied run total is pretty hard for me to negate, and it's not like Imanaga doesn't have good strikeout stuff. So relative to ownership, your question, I love Shota Imanaga today. I've got him in 32% of lineups.
Yeah, so I'm on the same page as you. A lot of it has to do with that weather. I'm also surprised that people are not backing Imanaga more significantly, considering how favorable the pitching conditions are. If you're just asking me who scores the most fantasy points, I'll tell you Sonny Gray. But when you start to factor in ownership, I actually have slightly more of Imanaga than I have of Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray, I have about half as much as what the field has, where I'm a little bit over 20% of Imanaga. So at, not like crazy low ownership or anything like that, but I think Imanaga should be over 20% owned. So if we're going to be getting him right in the mid-teens at 15%, yeah, I like having over 20% of Imanaga. I'm underweight to the field on Sonny Gray. And then Seth Lugo, not a pitcher I really have all that much interest in. I haven't played Lugo really much at all as of late, now that his price tags have gotten so expensive.
And I like Seth Lugo. I think he's done some really good things in the last couple of years to improve and just continues to get better. And this has been kind of the height of his powers. But this Boston team is number 1 in baseball against righties over the last 30 days. We're talking a 145 WRC. Oh, no, 148. There you go. Even a little bit better. Seth Lugo also doesn't have the strikeout stuff. 21.3% K rate. Going up against Boston up here. He's the most overpriced pitcher, I think, on this slate, and I feel pretty comfortable in saying that.
I've also got a super chat here from Chris Williams. It says, not sure if this has been asked, but 2 questions. 1, does the single lineup tool work on all slates or just the main slates? All slates that we support within our sims, yes, it is in there. So for baseball, that isn't going to be the showdown slates because we don't do projections for relief pitchers. But yes, I know that, Chris, you like to play some of those late night slates, some of those turbo slates. It is included in the single lineup simulator. And then he wants to know, will the lineup generator work for NFL Showdown? Yes, we do have the lineup generator for NFL Showdown. So thank you for asking those questions, Chris, because if you have those questions, stands to reason that other people in the audience do as well. So if you have any other questions, hit me up and I could answer them for you. But we will have the lineup generator for NFL Showdown. And then those late night slates you play, they are covered in the single lineup simulator there. So let's talk about the next range of pitchers, Eric. And now if we get into the 8K range, we got a couple of very, very popular pitchers. Pablo Lopez, 45% owned. Luis Castillo, 37% owned. And then everybody else in this price range, you got Grayson Rodriguez, 10% owned. Framber Valdez, 10% owned. And then Clayton Kershaw, people not really playing him, nor do I think they really should because he still appears to be pretty limited. Who do you like between the chalk options, Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez? Do you think the ownership on them is warranted?
Yeah, it's warranted on Pablo Lopez, one of the most unlucky pitchers in baseball this season, and now an incredible game environment against a Cubs team that can't stop striking out, and the weather is just absolutely insane. So Pablo Lopez should be insanely owned, and I'm surprised he's not actually higher owned. But here we are, Pablo Lopez. I'm definitely going to like him. I think the Luis Castillo ownership is pretty decent as well for good reason. I mean, Detroit. You go to this lineup, 90 WRC plus against righties, 23.6% K rate. I obviously prefer Pablo Lopez, but it is still somebody that I'm going to get to a healthy amount of. For me, it's going to be a lot of Imanaga. I'm exactly with you too. We'll get to some of the concerning Sonny Gray stuff, and I do have some Tampa Bay interest today going up against him, although I still think he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. I miss him on my Twins, but Shota Imanaga, Luis Castillo, Pablo Lopez, a couple of them chalky. The last two, the former Shota Imanaga, not popular. That's going to make up a large portfolio of my pitching portfolio. I've got 58% Pablo Lopez. I've got how much Castillo? 36% Castillo, and I got 32% Imanaga.
So we got three really chalky pitchers on the slate. And I know this is going to be a question we get in Discord. People are going to want to know who to play in cash games. To me, it's pretty simple. I like Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez both more than Sonny Gray. Ownership is it's a lot higher on Pablo Lopez than the other two. It's comparable between Castillo and Sonny Gray. I'm underweight to the field on Sonny Gray, but I've got Castillo and Pablo Lopez each in a little bit more than half of my lineups. So I certainly think the ownership is warranted there. Even the crazy ownership there on Pablo Lopez. We do have him with the second highest overall odds, being a top 2 scoring pitcher on the slate, only behind Sonny Gray, but marginally behind Sonny Gray. And keep in mind, Sonny Gray is also $1,600 more expensive. So Pablo Lopez, like him a whole bunch at 8K. And then if you have lineups that have Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez, they're $8,200 and $8,000. That really gives you a lot of salary savings to do kind of whatever you want with stacks and some other spots in the lineup. Do you like any of the contrarian 8K pitchers?
Like is probably not the right word. I feel like I've said that a lot here on recent slates, but I guess it's just kind of the truth of it. Clayton Kershaw's been so bad to start off. I don't think he's dust at this point in time. Grayson Rodriguez, I think the strikeout stuff's nifty, but he's taking on Toronto for a second straight game, and Baltimore had the day off yesterday. So if this gets to a 6th inning scenario where it's like, oh, do we let Grayson Rodriguez finish this out or whatever, what have you? You know, they can go to their bullpen. They do play for 6 consecutive games before having another Monday off, like most teams do this time of year. Sorry, why is my mom calling me? But anyway, we've got ourselves one guy that I have a little bit of here in Framber Valdez going up against Texas. It's not a great strikeout matchup, but we know Valdez, the ground ball percentage. I can't even talk about how frustrating it was to have bet on Houston yesterday. There aren't really words for it, but Valdez going up against Molly. I have no idea what to make of Molly here in this spot. Been a long time since we saw him. He was topping out around 93 on the gun in some of his warm-up, ramp-up starts here for this one. Not sure how that fastball is going to play, and considering it's over 50% of his portfolio at his pitches, I'm going to need to see that. It's not going to be something we know until he gets out there, but Framber Valdez, I think he has just enough on the bone there for me where I can get to close to 10% of him, but I really don't like anything else in the 8K range.
I like Grayson Rodriguez a little bit. If you're looking to pivot off of one of these other 8K pitchers, I think he is the guy to be getting to just because he brings the most upside to the table. He's been a little bit inconsistent at times, which is to be expected from a young pitcher, but he's got terrific stuff. He was a top 10 prospect in all of baseball heading into last year, and he's made big improvements this season. He struggled when he first got called up last year. This year, 3.86 ERA, 3.74 expected ERA, but most importantly, the 26.5% strikeout rate. So there's a real scenario here where he has a ceiling game, generates a bunch of strikeouts, and he could potentially outscore one of or both of Pablo Lopez and Luis Castillo. So that's a direction that I like going to if I'm going to be contrarian this 8K range, Grayson Rodriguez, but I'm not getting to any of the other pitchers in this range. I have, 3% of Framber Valdez. I have no Clayton Kershaw lineups. So for me, if I'm going to be contrarian, Grayson Rodriguez, but a lot of my pitching ownership, it is taken up by Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez, and consider the price points on them. There isn't that much of a need to go cheaper. Do you like any of these 7K pitchers in any kind of meaningful way?
No, I do not. This is probably my least favorite range of it, and I think Jeffrey Springs is really good, but I don't think he's going to pitch enough to really be justified here in this spot? I know that he ran into a little bit of a jam. So is it going to be 76 pitches up to 80 or 90? 90 would be kind of an outlier, I think, in this spot. And St. Louis, it's just a whatever matchup here at this point in time. I'm not going to write Jeffrey Springs off for the future, but for today, I just don't really find a need to get to him. Mole, no clue. No clue what his fastball is going to play like here. No clue how he's going to look. And Bryce Elder kind of sucks. So 7K, I'm not going to really make any case for any of these guys. I have like trace amounts. I have like 2% of Elder. I have how much of Bassett? I have 4% Bassett. So there you go. That's my big stand in the 7K range.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too, you bringing up Molly there is he does seem to be relatively potentially oh no, never mind. I'm looking at minor league starts from I have no clue what he's going to be doing in terms of depth in the game. I pulled up his minor league box scores and I was looking at games, but didn't realize that those are ones that are listed from 2023 as his most recent one. So it looked like the dates were in line, but then I realized, oh no, never mind, 2023. So don't want to touch him regardless because first start in a year, and then also talking about some of the stuff that like you had said where just a lot of variance. We don't know what it is that he's going to look like, but I do expect they're going to be really cautious with him. So pass for me on him. What about cheaper? Are there any punt options that you like getting to, or do you have a favorite punt option?
Again, it's not favorite is like the weird word of saying this, but I like Ross Stripling for this slate. The White Sox have lost infinity games in a row. He's 4% owned going up against Oakland. Do I think he's any good whatsoever? No. But this was a White Sox team that was dead last in WRC plus from the right side, 71. And that was before they traded away Tommy Pham and Eloy Jimenez, who would be the second and third best hitters next to Luis Robert in this lineup if it were currently constructed that way. It's not freaking currently constructed this way. It is Miguel Vargas, Brooks Baldwin, whatever that is, and Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn, Benintendi. And then it just gets awful, decrepit there at the bottom. It's 70 degrees. Yeah, the wind's slightly blowing out, but we know that that park is built to mitigate some of those factors. And then Ross Stripling, he's not good, but he's going to be a minus 205 favorite today. I mean, that has to bring up his win expectation. And when you're looking at a $5,900 pitcher, finding a win is almost as important as, just about anything else, because if you can get and justify 14, 15 fantasy points for somebody down in this range, I can make a case for them. So he's my highest owned guy that I have sub 7K, actually sub 8K. He's my highest owned. I have 11% of him.
I don't have any pitcher that I've prioritized on the low end. It's more so a handful of guys that I'm just taking dart throws on that I have in like 3 to 5% a lineup. So the way that I'm looking at this is if you guys are playing the slate today and you're building 1, 2, 3, 5, like I know what most of you guys are playing, I don't think there's any need to roster any of these guys who are priced below 8K. I've got a couple of lineups that have Brian Bayo. I've got a couple of Luis Severino lineups. I agree with you as well. If I had to roster one, Eric, and I just had to pick one, I would go Ross Stripling because of the matchup against the White Sox, but I've got 3% of Ross Stripling, so I'm not prioritizing it. You just don't need to when there's so many good pitchers that are priced right around 8K. No, well, let's see. Yeah, the one I have the most of is Ross Stripling in 3% of lineup. So some shots, but nothing that's really all that important to me. Nor do I think you need to go this cheap. But you can make a Met stack, the team that's the highest top stack odds by a mile on the slate, and you can easily stack them with pitchers that are more expensive than these punt options. So no real need for me here. Anything else you want to add about the DraftKings pitchers? If not, we will answer a super chat we have from Chris Williams.
Yeah, I'm not even doing it like in the name of trying to be contrarian, but I am pairing a number of like Imanaga or Castillo or Pablo Lopez lineups with Stripling. And then I do have 5% Kiter Montero, 5,400. Yeah, you bring up that it's not crazy cost prohibitive, but these aren't exactly the cheapest tags that we're going to get. Francisco Lindor, 5,900. I will say, I think the Mets are just drastically undervalued. They're underpriced, like to an extreme extent on today's slate. And it's a little frustrating. I'm forcing in some Dodgers on the expensive end, and those are mainly the ones like the Ohtani Freeman combos left on left. But I'm like forcing in some of those kind of combos, and those are the ones that are showing up with the Stripling and Montero, but it's not a crazy amount of it. You should be pretty concentrated at the top. I think Sonny Gray, we're both underweight to him. Imanaga, we think, is very undervalued. Grayson Rodriguez, you like. I'm not as much there. I totally get the case that you're making there. but like Pablo Lopez is just a jam for me today, and it kind of doesn't make way for like anything else for me to make a stand below 8K.
Got a very tricky super chat from Chris Williams. He wants to know, for the DK night slate next to Castillo, can we name our 2 favorite pitchers? Now, if you look at the night slate pitchers, Eric, it's fucking terrible. Terrible. Like I would probably play Luis Castillo in all my lineups, but here's what it is beyond him. And this is why Castillo is 81% owned on the night slate. Here's why. These are the other pitchers you have to choose from: Clayton Kershaw, Christopher Sanchez, Hyder Montero, Ross Stripling, Jonathan Cannon.
It's not great, Bob.
Of those guys, who are your 2 favorites that aren't Luis Castillo?
Hyder Montero and Ross Stripling. I'm not playing 36% Clayton Kershaw against the Phillies. I would refuse.
Here's the difficult part here. I agree with you. I don't want to play a chalky Clayton Kershaw. I don't want to play Christopher Sanchez against the Dodgers either.
Yep. I said I just think I would be going
remaining options being Hyder Montero, Ross Stripling, Jonathan Cannon. These guys are all trash, and they're all about comparably owned as well. Then I'm just looking at it as which pitchers do I think deliver the most upside in their matchups. And I'm going to say, with same as you, Ross Stripling and Hyder Montero. I don't like Hyder Montero's matchup against the Mariners either, but at least they bring strikeouts to the table. You know, it's like we're picking Jonathan Cannon or Hyder Montero. You like go drunk at go to a bar drunk and pick out your favorite 2, right? That's what we're doing right here.
That sounds like what we're going to do on Friday. Hey-o.
Yeah, with your sister-in-law and
with my sister-in-law. It'll be great. No, she will not come out with us on Friday night. God no. God no, I refuse. I forbid it. Or forebode it. But anyway, yeah,
these
Justin
options
Turner
are terrible.
It's fucking abysmal down here. I mean, we're making a case to fade Kershaw and Sanchez more than we are making a case to play Montero or Stripling. It's just an ownership thing, and Montero and Stripling are at least cheap. You can get to a lot of the expensive bats that you can get Contrarian with. I would be stacking a lot against Kershaw. This looks like this is going to probably be a pretty good, pretty pronounced slate for DK night. Like, I don't play a lot of 3-game MLB slates, but looking at the interested play tonight.
We got another super chat here, and then we also got a question in Discord. So first, super chat here. By the way, I think Eric is frozen.
No, I'm
not. Boy, Eric literally is gonna be having
I'm not frozen
about his internet later. Yeah, it's very
I'm
bad.
not frozen. No, I'm not. You're lying. You're lying.
Jordan Klein, back me
Bro.
up. Jordan Klein, was Eric or was Eric not frozen?
No, I wasn't. I'm not frozen.
Dude, you're more frozen than Elsa. You were not moving at all.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah, you were stuck in the Matrix. Corey Bomber wants to know favorite money line play for tonight and then pitcher strikeout prop. Pull up odd
starts in 10 minutes. Cincinnati minus 135 now, got bet down by I don't know who minus 160 to minus 135, whatever. Just bet it.
All right, I have gone over to Hyder Montero. This is so like we talked about Hyder Montero pitching against the Mariners and how it is a team that could strike out a decent amount, but what the hell is going on now? Is Eric no longer with us again? All right, he was convinced his internet was fine, and then he totally drops out not all that long later. So for a strikeout prop, I'll answer the other part of this. Eric's answer there, I believe he said the Reds before he dropped off. Did I hear that correctly, Jordan? He's back.
My wife
told you there was
rebooted the internet for no reason. On a show.
What was it? You were kind of cutting out. Did you say the Reds? I thought I made that out, but you were breaking up right before you dropped out.
Yeah, they started in 9 minutes, so I would go bet it. Minus 135.
So Cincinnati Reds money line for that part of Corey's question. For me, I'm going to say Hyder Montero. I don't know what books you have access to, but This one is showing up near the top of Odd Shopper right now. But Kiter Montero, under 5.5 strikeouts, not all that heavily juiced either, minus 125. Even if he's in a good strikeout matchup, 5.5 is too high of a prop, in my opinion. The number really should be 4.5. And we also have the fair line on under 5.5. We have projected minus 136. So that's a number I like. Under 5.5 strikeouts there for Kiter Montero. Hopefully those hit for you today, Corey. And then we had a question in Discord from Einsteinium. He wanted to know if we like Framber Valdez. I prefer Grayson Rodriguez for a very similar price point, but Eric said that he liked Framber Valdez as his contrarian play in that price range.
Not like is whatever. I have like very, very nominal amount of him, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but Framber Valdez, because I think when Einstein asked us these questions, I'm pretty sure he's asking us from a standpoint of he's looking to pivot away from the really chalky options. And if he's going to do that, who to get to? My answer is going to be Grayson Rodriguez. And based on what you'd said before,
I got this $5 bill burning a hole in my pocket. Yeah. I 'a $5 bill burning a hole in this pocket. I need to make a contrarian lineup, Daddy. Yeah. Let's go.
Honestly, I much prefer playing Luis Castillo and Pablo Lopez and being a little bit more contrarian at offense.
What the shit was that, Jordan
Klein? It's like you're playing a Met stack and you need a contrarian pitcher. Then, yeah, maybe you want to go to like a Grayson Rodriguez as opposed to Luis Castillo or Pablo Lopez. But I'm fine with the chalk on those two guys. I'm less fine with the chalk on Sonny Gray. And all right, no more questions. Mr. Poolcam did ask us for our favorite stack for FanDuel GPP, which we'll be talking about in a second here. But first, we'll look at the FanDuel pitchers and see if there's anything different about the FanDuel side of things at pitcher relative to DraftKings. And then we'll go and build some lineups in the single lineup simulator. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If anybody in Discord wants us to review their lineup, send it into Discord. If nobody answers in Discord, then somebody from YouTube, just post your lineup into the YouTube chat, and then Jordan will transcribe it into the single lineup simulator. Over on FanDuel, here's what we have for pitcher ownership, Eric. It is a little bit more spread out than on DraftKings because as opposed to the crazy high ownership on Castillo, Lopez, and Sonny Gray, they're popular, but Castillo's 16% owned, Lopez is 16% owned, Sonny Gray is 13% owned, and the next most popular pitcher is Shota Imanaga at 8% owned. So a little bit tighter group together on the FanDuel side of things. If you're building one FanDuel GPP lineup, which pitcher is in it?
Shota Imanaga. Got to be Shota. It's Shota time.
I'm going to say for myself, Pablo Lopez at 10K, still the guy that I want to be going to. Imanaga is also a consideration. I mean, so is Luis Castillo. But considering that the ownership gap isn't crazy like it is on the DraftKings side of things, I'm cool just playing Pablo Lopez at the 16% ownership. That's where I would go to. Any of these guys, and also Sonny Gray looks better to me on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings because he's 13% owned as opposed to the 33% ownership. I'll say this, though. If I'm building a handful of lineups on FanDuel, I'm not rostering anybody other than Imanaga, Gray, Lopez, or Castillo at pitcher. Fair to say that?
100%.
But yeah, Lopez for me, Imanaga for you. What about a cash game lineup? If you're building a cash game lineup on FanDuel, which of these four would you go to?
Pablo Lopez.
Oh, boy. We've gotten the most impossible of impossible questions. Jacob Dunn left us a super chat. He wants to know best two cheap pitchers and best stacks to go with it. I mean, I'm going to give you answers, and then at the end of the day, all of these cheap pitchers are going to suck, and then it's going to be like, no matter what I said, it was going to be the wrong answer. It is like that is sometimes, you get the messages on Twitter. People are like, how come this was the contrarian stack you like today? And I'll look back at the slate. It's like, well, every single chalk team went off and every contrarian team busted. So no matter what contrarian option I would have gone, would have been the wrong answer. That's kind of what I feel is going to happen with the cheap pitchers on this slate. I'll say Luis Severino and Ross Stripling.
That's fair. Those are the two. Luis Severino, Ross Stripling. I have 4% Kiter Montero now in my last run.
Best overall stack on the slate. But if you're playing cheap pitchers today, you're not worried at all about ownership. Mets. The Mets are the best overall stack on the slate by a mile.
by a mile.
So there we go. Yeah, Chris Williams just said, just give your worst, Greg. I don't have a best answer to this question. I did my best, but it's really not there's no correct way to go. It just, that question just sets me up for failure. It's just the reality.
It's like saying choose your weapon and lining up like gummy worms, runts, bad apple. Like, these are not weapons. These are not good weapons.
Let's see what else we had come into Discord. Sniffs1234 asked, is Kyle Freeland sneaky today? He's sneaky in the sense that people aren't going to play him. But I also don't want to be playing Kyle Freeland. I understand the leverage because the Mets are going to be very popular. The Mets are the most popular offense. Kyle Freeland is the least popular pitcher, but on the whole, I think Freeland's a very weak pitching option. Even if he's passable against the Mets, to me, what's most likely to happen in that scenario is you'll be happy you had a stack that isn't the Mets. I find it to be very unlikely that Kyle Freeland will not only shut down the Mets, but also be one of the top scoring pitchers on the slate. I can't recommend playing him.
Can't recommend it either.
Can't recommend it. All right. I think we are caught up on the super chats. We are. So let's build a lineup in the single lineup simulator, Jordan. And nobody in Discord asked for us to review a lineup for them. So if somebody in chat wants to throw in a lineup, I see Folk Matt threw one in. Let's plug this in. Oh, never mind. It's a Yahoo lineup. So never mind. I didn't read until the end.
Nobody said there'd be reading.
Well, I just read the players and was like, all right. So for reference, single lineup simulator, it supports FanDuel, DraftKings, as well as Owner's Box. So it'd have to be one of those sites. Let's see if anybody else threw one in. If not, I'll wait for somebody to respond. Also, if you're interested, Chris, you could give us one of your late night lineups that we could also plug in here.
Ooh, that'd be really fun. I actually want to see that with this sounds weird to say. I think there might be more of an edge to playing the night slate than the main slate today.
All right, let's build one. Jordan, let's do the night slate and see what we could figure out. This is not going to be easy.
No, it's not. But I'm very interested because I something tells me that if you don't have Sanchez and Kershaw in that lineup, you're sitting in a pretty good positive EV spot.
All right, so let's go Castillo at pitcher, no doubt.
No doubt.
All right, Castillo at pitcher. Gonna go do you want to go Montero for cheap? Stripling? Who do you want to go for cheap now?
I want to go Stripling. Let's pick on the team that I don't know has lost infinity games in a row.
All right, so let's plug in Stripling. And now what team do we want to stack?
See, this is where it's tough. I think the Phillies are probably my preferred path.
Okay. So let's stack against Kershaw.
Yep.
Let me see which hitters from the Phillies I have the most exposure to on the main slate.
I mean, I don't have a ton of them, but I have, let's see, who do I have the most of? Alec Bohm.
Okay, so plug 6%. Alec Bohm in, Jordan. BOHM.
Then Trey Turner.
I'm going to
shortstop Trey Turner, and it's spelled very stupidly, TREA.
Okay, I just filtered by my Phillies lineups here because I do have a couple of Phillies stacks. JT Realmuto, Jordan, at catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And we found you're very good at spelling some of these abbreviated names. JT. Yeah, there we go. Fucking nailed another one.
God, you're so smart.
Austin Hayes. HAYS. And then Kyle Schwarber.
He seems good. Left on left at Ilmata, babe.
1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got 5 now, right? When Realmuto, Turner, Hayes, Schwarber, and Bohm. So we've got our 5 Phillies in there. We have $4,000 left for our remaining spots. So first base, let's see, who's projecting the best at first base for us, Jordan? Actually, sort by the value column, because we're going to have to potentially have some cheapies here. Yeah, first base. All right. Can't really see who's on the screen. It's hard to see through Zoom. What do you want our secondary stack to be, Eric?
I mean, I don't think we have the money to go expensive Dodgers, but I think Oakland's going to be a little bit overowned, even though we're playing Stripling. I would be curious. I mean, Seattle going to be the chalk of like cheapies. They have a lot of value, whether it's Robles 3,300. You've got Polanco 4K. You've got Turner at 3,200 at first base. Like, with some options with Seattle.
All right, so let's plug in some of the Seattle bats then. Yeah, second base now. Yep.
My guy.
And now outfield.
I miss him, even though he did drugs.
Is there a Seattle? Who's the Seattle guy that projects the best? Sort by projection. Projection, yeah, over there. And then just whichever Seattle player projects the best that fits into our lineup. All right. Let's see how this comes out. And also, to answer Chris's question before, yes, as you can see here, the late night slates are supported within here. And we got a positive ROI lineup kind of firing from the hip here, 4.5% sim ROI there. So there we go. Built a lineup for the late night slate there as well. And if you guys are looking to play that, also supported within the single lineup simulator. If you want to sign up for a data package or the Sims package, we got that promo going on. Promo code SINGLE, get yourself 25% off. Be for a weekly package, monthly package on the data or the Sims. Both of those packages include the new single lineup simulator. Link is down below in the YouTube description box, and the promo code is already loaded in there. Let's talk about some of the other stacks that we like for the slate here, Eric. Who is the team you have the most exposure to overall? Is it the Mets or is it somebody else?
It is the New York Mets.
Yeah. The Mets are kind of like the Giants of last night's slate, where, yes, they're going to be popular.
Oh, the Giants were insanely owned yesterday. They were way more popular than projected. I mean, that was egregious, if we're being honest.
They were super, super popular. Super, super popular. They ended up being, off the top of my head, Fitzgerald was like 25% owned, and he homered immediately.
Same thing with Chapman.
Homered. He was like 24% owned or 22% or something. I'm not going to play the Mets in single entry. Large field GPPs, though, it's pretty clearly to me the best team to be getting to.
Absolutely. In large field, you should absolutely be playing them. I am playing Tampa Bay in single entry.
I'm playing them, which I kind of tipped my hand at the top of the show. Milwaukee Brewers for me, though. There's only 3 teams I have double-digit exposure to, considering the size of the slate, Eric. One of them is the Mets. One of them is the Brewers. The other one is the Colorado Rockies, which is just because they're the Rockies and they're playing in Coors Field. That's it. Yep. It's just because they're playing in Coors Field. There's nothing else to it. And then if you look at our top stacks tool, you'll see here we've got the Mets just miles ahead of every other team on the slate. We've got them with a 20% chance to be the top scoring team. Then you got second is the Colorado Rockies there. And, they've got like a third of the chance being the top scoring team relative to the Mets. So you'll see here the Mets, even though they have all that ownership, it's pretty much warranted considering our chance of them being a top scoring team. And then there's a bunch of other squads that are close there. Rockies, Orioles, Astros, A's, Braves, they're all kind of grouped together. So for me, of the next group of teams, it's the Rockies as well as the Brewers that I like getting to. Are there any other teams you have double-digit exposure to today?
Houston. I have double-digit exposure to Houston. So yeah, Mets, Colorado, Houston, and that's it for me. I have 3.
Yeah, and BTFU 1989 in the Discord chat did ask who our favorite stacks are for DraftKings. Those are what they are for me. Mets, Brewers, Rockies, those 3 teams are the ones that I get the most of. And then for the question we got from Mr. Coolcam for our favorite FanDuel GPP stack, is there a contrarian stack you're liking over on FanDuel? Like, our favorite stack is going to be the New York Mets. Outside of the Mets, what's your favorite FanDuel specific team to be getting to?
Take a look here.
That's going to be the Rockies for me, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. Excluding the Mets, I'm probably going to say, just I'm comparing my lineups, looking at overlaying it. I think it's Houston. Houston would be my favorite on FanDuel.
Yeah, on FanDuel for me, like I said, it's the Rockies. It's also a little bit different on FanDuel because the Rockies are, and not this makes like the biggest difference in the world, but they are only 6% owned over on FanDuel. No team other than
Yeah.
that's more than 8% owned on the FanDuel side of things. So the Rockies, they get a little bit less popular in our latest update relative to what I was looking at before on my screen. But yeah, I think the Rockies are a team that are reasonable to be getting to against Luis Severino. One of the main reasons why, even though Severino has pitched better this year than last year, which isn't that hard to do. The bar was very, very low. He was dog shit last year, is because while the stuff is still there from a velocity standpoint, Eric, the swing and misses aren't anymore. So you got a pitcher in Luis Severino, who in his prime was a guy who had terrific stuff. Injuries were always an issue, but you knew you were going to be getting a guy who could strike out 30+% of the hitters that he's facing. Now he's at a point in his career where he's found ways to be successful, but he's limiting walks and also not generating a lot of strikeouts. So he's been very reliant on putting the ball in play and having those balls hit at fielders. That's not always the best path to victory as a pitcher pitching in Coors Field. So I always get concerned about a pitcher when they have to be pitching to contact in Colorado. So give me the Colorado Rockies against Luis Severino. Are there any really contrarian teams that you're getting to? Super low owned teams, or maybe a leverage stack against one of the popular pitchers?
I really like Tampa Bay. Brought up that I'm playing them there in single entry. I'm going to be rolling with it here. I think that at the same time that there's no doubt Sonny Gray should be a popular pitching option on today's slate, there's at least some concern I have for him. A 175 ISO against lefties isn't nothing. A 177 expected ISO against righties isn't exactly nothing. There's a little bit better power metrics going up against him than what I was anticipating and looking at last night and then today. Winds blowing out across, maybe a little bit to the pole in St. Louis. It's 65% humidity, 84 degrees at first pitch. I could see this being a spot where some lefties, specifically Brandon Lau, Josh Lowe, Ben Rortvedt, the catcher there, decent enough option. Kind of like getting to some of these Tampa Bay bats more than the field does. I mean, not that anybody's getting to them. He's one of the most popular pitchers on this slate, but Tampa Bay is a team that I'm going to be riding with pretty heavily tonight in terms of like leverage. I've got like 8% Brandon Lowe. So when I say popular, I'm saying they're like relative to the size of the slate, and then they're 3% owned. So I'm triple the field on them.
Yeah, let's see. What's a team sub 5% owned? I know here's one that you had mentioned before, but the Astros going up against Tyler Mahle. You got a pitcher who hasn't pitched in the big leagues in a year, coming off a significant injury, really wide range of outcomes with him. So I think the Houston Astros, that's a team who really weren't terrible on offense yesterday. You talked about having a bet on them and how they left a million runners on base. They should have scored a bunch of runs yesterday. They had the guys on base. It felt like they left the bases loaded 7 times yesterday. So maybe people will get off of them because they struggled yesterday, but sub 5% ownership on the Houston Astros. That's certainly a spot that I think makes sense against Tyler Mahle. And then let's see, what's another team that's really low owned that I have some interest in? I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers, they're 6% owned. That's the team that I have the second most exposure to on the slate behind the Mets. So that's another one that I have interest in. And then see, really low owned. What's the ownership on? Yeah, also Seattle against Keider Montero, sub 5% ownership on Seattle. And when we were talking about the late slate before, the only reason that we had any interest in Keider Montero is because all the pitching options are complete dog shit. But Keider Montero, he falls into that complete dog shit barrel. 6.18 ERA, 5.05 expected ERA. He is not getting very many swing and misses, 18.3%. This is one of these scenarios, Eric. It's the stoppable force against the movable object. What is going to give? Are the Seattle Mariners actually going to make contact with the ball? Or is Keider Montero actually going to generate swing and misses? Because those are two things that have both been difficult to happen this season with the low strikeout rate of Montero and the high strikeout rate of the Mariners. But I like the upside of the Mariners of low ownership. So those are a couple of low-owned teams that stand out to me. But Like, I'm not getting to any exposure to the bad weather game at offense. I think that is a mistake if you guys are going down that route. Like, I don't want to play the Tigers at 2% ownership or the Rangers at 3% ownership against Valdez or anything like that. So the low owned teams for today, I think are low owned for good reason.
100% with you. Nothing to add.
Let's see what we have here. We got a super chat from Icy Through Justin H. He is, I'm actually not really sure what it says. Imanaga, Lopez, Pajes, Guerrero, Horwitz, Ventos. They're just asking what we think of those players.
They look like baseball players.
So Imanaga and Lopez, clearly pitchers that you and I both have said that we like over the course of the show. Andy Pajes going up against Christopher Sanchez, not really a high priority for me. Guerrero, Horwitz, Ventos. I mean, Ventos, yes, because he's playing in Coors Field, but Horwitz, Vlad, Pajes, none of those are hitters that are priorities for me today.
I 100% agree.
What do I have of Ventos? Yeah, Ventos is in 30% of my lineups because of the Coors Field spot, but I hardly get to any of those other hitters that are there. We posted the rest under. Oh, I see. All right, let's plug his. I see what's happening here. Jordan, let's plug his lineup into the single lineup sim.
Let's do it.
Do you have any other? Because I mean, I've already gone through all the things that are important to me today. Anything else you want to add about the slate, Eric?
No, some random stuff popping up here and there, but we've talked about our favorite leverage spots, our favorite cheapies. I think it wouldn't shock me to see a number of different teams smash, but there's no doubt the Mets are rightfully chalk. I mean, come on.
All right. Yeah, plug this in here, Jordan. And we'll see what it ends up being. Does he have all the players listed here? I think so. By the way, I just realized that he actually might be referring to just because of the order he listed in. I think he might be talking about Pajes the catcher. It is Pedro. Just considering the order that he submitted that to us in. Yeah, and then third base. Yeah, you're on it. Just putting those names in. While Jordan's putting that in, Eric, tell me your home run pick of the day. Let's do our home run picks while Jordan is building this lineup and putting it through the Sims. Who are you picking to go yard today? No Coors Field. That's cheating.
Yeah, Coors Field is normally cheating. I want to bring up this guy for it? I should have just decided. Normally I just kind of decide ahead of time, but I don't have a ton of home red bets, and if I do, they've already started, I believe. Outside of, I was going to bet Anthony Santander at plus 400, plus 420, but didn't end up pulling the trigger there on that one from a betting perspective. Let's do this one. Let's go towards the leverage. I talked about it before. Tampa Bay against St. Louis. I think they had a couple of solo shots, or maybe better than that. That would be useful for me. Brandon Lowe, my guy, going up against Brandon Lau. Sorry, Josh Lowe. Brandon Lau going up against Sonny Gray here. Brought up some of those kind of concerning numbers, a little higher power metrics. And then Brandon Lau, 250 expected ISO against right-handed pitching on the season, 10 homers against him, 16-degree average launch angle. He goes yard in St. Louis.
I'm going to go with William Contreras of the Milwaukee Brewers. That is my home run pick. And I'll read some off from you guys in the chat in a second here. But as far as the lineup we got here from Justin H., it is projected to be a negative ROI lineup. Here's what I think the biggest issue is for your lineup. I see you do have, it is a four-man Toronto stack. I am not looking to stack against Grayson Rodriguez today. Even though he's a pitcher, I mean, he was actually my favorite contrarian pitcher on the entire slate. Another reason I don't really want to be stacking against him. But when you look at the size of the slate and how many bad pitchers there are, I don't want to be stacking against one of the best pitchers on the slate.
Sounds good.
Let me see. Do I have any? Yeah, I don't have, of my top 150 lineups, 0 of them are Toronto Blue Jays stacks. So not a team that I'd be looking to stack. Once again, to reiterate, here are the 3 teams that I have the most of. the Mets, the Brewers, the Rockies. If you do want to be more on the contrarian side, I think the Brewers are the way to go. And then remind Justin, what was your favorite contrarian stack, Eric?
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Tampa Bay for Eric. So
Houston, I guess, was kind of like 1A. They're a better, obviously more likely stack than that of Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay.
Looks like we have answered all the super chats. We've answered all the questions in Discord. So if you guys haven't done it, like the video, subscribe, and we'll read off your guys' home run picks. Jordan, get ready, because you always have to close us out with your home run pick of the day. Who knows what direction Jordan might go in. Obi-Wan has got Alec Boehm. Oh, I'm seeing Taco933. He's got Contreras and Adames for today. Nice Kevin is going with Vlad, Santander, and Marcell Ozuna. Chris Williams says Butler goes back-to-back. All right, Butler and somebody else homering back-to-back with them. Mike Campbell's got Nick Castellanos. We've got Nicholas Barrett is going with Gunnar Henderson. Andrew Benintendi from Doug Gelly. Casey Leatherwood going with Jose Altuve and Anthony Santander. We got Yordan Alvarez from Ashnel Singh. Malukar's going with Isaac Paredes and Randy Arozarena. We've got Clintwood 83 going with Marcell Ozuna. Then here we've got Brent Rooker from Robert Grease. I feel like Brent Rooker gets picked by a couple people in the chat every single night now, and for good reason. He's been really good as of late. Since, I don't know, last 2 months or something, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball. Kyle Gentry is going with Masataka Yoshida and Ryan O'Hearn. Then we've got Douglas Dobbs going with Colton Cowser. Gunnar Henderson from Francisco Rubio. Envious is going with Austin Riley. Red Kell is on my team going with Wilson Contreras. We've got David Wayne going with Nick Castellanos. And then we've got Bader from Justin H. Salvador Perez from RBL. Nick Sogard from Paul C. There's a name that nobody has ever picked hit a home run ever. Gunnar Henderson from Jose Mora. And then Comment God going with Brandon Lau and Josh Lowe. Jordan, close us out. Who homers today? All right.
No, he doesn't.
Suzuki,
no, he doesn't. Really, Shut up.
Terrible pick into the 30-mile
power. Horrible pick. Boo this man. Boo.
Yeah, boo this man. Boo this man. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done yet, like, subscribe, follow. If you want to sign up at Bet365 and you haven't yet, place a $10 deposit. You bet $5, they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets. If you or anybody know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you guys very much for watching. Good luck tonight. See you back here tomorrow.